No, don't. He keeps trying to go around me so he doesn't get in any other shots.
Good idea.
And where's Don? Don's not. I thought it would be. I'm Lisa Costello.
There's the man of the hour right now.
And I'm the gallery director.
I want to introduce Mr. Watercolor to you.
I thought it'd be really nice to have Don introduce Jack because they were office mates for over 20 years. And so I think of them, you know, together as building the program. I wanted to thank a few people who were instrumental in helping with the exhibition. Paula McCarty, who's our exhibitions coordinator, she's back there. Can you wave for us? She really helped with planning the show and putting a lot of things together. And I also wanted to thank Laura O'Donnell. She was really great. She's our collections coordinator. And so she really helped, especially with packing our last show, which was a photo show, so we had things coming from all over the country. And I wanted to thank Lydia Stevens, who was also helpful with setting up the show. She helped kind of move the artwork. And of course, Jack was amazing. I loved working with him, so it was a real experience for me.
Truly amazing.
It was. I felt honored. I got to visit his studio and everything, so I've really enjoyed working with him. And then I wanted to thank the Illinois Arts Council. So we received a grant, and this is a perfect example of why we received the Illinois Arts Council grant, to have Illinois artists come and show their work here and bring new work. And Jack produced 3 new pieces which are out in the gallery lounge. So that's a really great example of that. We do have some of his canvas. One of his pieces that was purchased in the Art and Architecture program, it's in the D wing, kind of under the staircase, and we made a canvas print of that, and so we're selling that, and proceeds will go to help frame the student art collection. We have a permanent collection, over 400 works around the campus. And so if anybody is interested in purchasing that, just talk to me. And Jack has graciously agreed to personally sign them. So yeah, so his wrists will get tired. So without further ado, I'm going to let Don Lake introduce Jack and say a few words.
If I had had a little more time to think about this, I'd have I'd be more organized. Let me say just a couple things.
This guy's so organized, he doesn't need any time. We were the odd couple. You should have seen my desk and then his desk.
20 years we lived together in an office with a kind of imaginary line down the middle. You'd think that would be warfare, but we were actually the closest of friends. So it's kind of a fun and funny thing about our history. An art program, you could say, at an institution has eras. And Jack represents what is, in my mind, kind of a great era here at the Parkland Art Department. He and I and Chris Berge and a lot of other very talented and wonderful colleagues kind of brought the program from a start up to speed and kind of built it in our own image. And what is curious about that remark is that our own image couldn't be more extreme. If you look at Jack's show, and some of you know what my work looks like, you might think, well, how can those guys agree on
Coexist.
things? But we seem to agree on most everything, and we talk a lot together and enjoy those talks, daily talks.
We even went to New York together once just to go out and do the galleries, and it was a lot of fun.
Yes, we were at a conference. It was understood, and we sort of missed all of the program. We created our own program. It was a wonderful thing. And other little trips we've taken to different places. We've had a lot of fun. So I'm not going to keep talking, but I'll let my buddy here talk. Thanks for doing this, because this is a treat for me, and I'm sure for all these people here.
Well, Don was right. We go back a long time, and I look back on my years at Parkland as wonderful times. When I first started teaching, I was so scared I could hardly talk. And eventually become a ham, but that's yeah, that was, you know, you often hear how students teach the teachers in some way. And I never thought of that. I knew more than those damn students did. Geez, what are they talking about? Well, actually, to get them to do what you want to do, you have to be pretty tricky, write some very clever assignments. And I think that's where the teachers learn, by trying to find different metaphors and different ways of saying things so you can get them to do that they need to do, and what you want them to do. So Parkland, being a foundation school, taught me a lot. I mean, I think it all happens in drawing one, frankly. If you get it all there, you don't need anything else. But almost nobody ever gets it all there. And some of them I've recommended they go back and take it again, and it's amazing. I mean, you know, who learns perspective that first semester? That's it. You know, so anyway, so you know, after 50 years, you'd think I'd have a boatload of wisdom to tell you all about the wonderful things of art. You know, I did write something out, but I left it home. I just, you know, somehow it's on the kitchen table there. Anyway, I would like to simply walk around and kind of take you down memory lane here and talk about these things a little bit and how they may have related to the times that they've existed in. And one of the early ones is this painting right here. When I graduated from the U of I was really under the spell of de Kooning and the New York School. That was a dynamic, it was the best art movement in the whole century as far as I'm concerned. And that's why these things are really big. This is an active, stressful, in the arena kind of painting. And that's the way they did it. And so there wasn't any just, you know, fiddling around with painting something. This was a much more dynamic involvement with the arts. And if you look at those artists at that time, you'll see that. And so that's something that stuck with me no matter what. So even when I'm doing drawings or other paintings, I'm still in there painting it right up to the end. I mean, the choices are continuous. There's nothing staged about this. So this is not a bad example of that period. And I was so surprised I had this tucked away and I didn't even see it for 20 years. And after I put this frame on it, I said, oh, Jack, you're not so bad. So, I'll hit these big ones here first here. This leaps, again, maybe 20 years. This is probably done, I'd say, well, it's within the past 15 years anyway. I spent a lot of time out in California every summer. I babysit my mentor's house. My mentor being Lee Chesney, who was professor of printmaking at the U of I. And they would go over to France for a year for a month, and I would have the house. There I was in the Pacific Palisades, full of celebrities and big cars, and it was really fun. But anyway, I enjoyed going down to the beach. That was beaches are wonderful. When you see people going to the beach, they're not kind of going like this. They're just can't wait to get out there. The kids are, Mommy, come on, let's go. They really have a lot of fun. There's something about the water that just brings out the joy in people. And that's what I was thinking of here. So, and this was just a made-up painting. I mean, I had done a lot of photographs of people on the beach, but, you know, I almost never use a photograph to paint from. It's just something, it's just like data, so you can kind of remember what things are like. And this was a lot of fun because I didn't know quite how to get that wet sand and the reflections and so on. So this is very typical. And out there in California, the surfers come in all the time. It's just wonderful. And this is kind of an example of, this is about as close as I get to some sort of realism here. But it's pretty impressionistic nonetheless. The last thing I did was this little girl right here. And I had a sketch of it I wanted to show you. Well, I can't find it now. Maybe you can see here. This is how quickly something like this painting can go to completion. Here's just a really scratchy little sketch. And it's almost exact duplicate of this. That hardly ever happens. And then I put some coloring down here. You can see right there how close this follows the painting. So that was one of those lucky days. The sun doesn't shine that way most of the time. All right, so as we're in here, I'm going to shift around. Here's a couple of drawings. Most of my drawings here are big, darkish things. A lot of heavy pigment here. 6B, 9B pencils. That's because my mentor, as I said, was a printmaker. And I was around a lot of printmakers, and those intaglio prints that they made were nice and rich and dark. And I'm a little bit lazy. I didn't care that much for printmaking. It took too long to make changes. You had to put it in the acid and clean it up and just fiddle around it. And I said, I'll just do drawings. So these drawings are, in a way, attempting to imitate the heavy-duty intaglio black richness of prints. And so I stayed with that. Almost all of these drawings, I'm using very heavy pigment, and I'm wiping it and using turp washes and moving it around. And so that's how they have this look. This is kind of a funny one. This isn't really sort of an underwater scene. This funny little cartoon guy here. I don't know what's that. That's masonry, not canvas. This was just kind of my summing up of the water scene there. This is just another version, and I decided, well, this again is all made up, but it's fun. It's just fun. It's money in the bank to do reflections. It's so easy. You got a little. You know, and there you are. It's wet. It's the quickest, easiest effect you can possibly think of. You know. And anyway, this is an acrylic, and I enjoyed the looseness of this. You know, I don't even think about it, but I made a red head, and a blue head, and this. It's just, but you're just dealing with this impression of the ocean. You know, the wetness and the reflections. It's just so much fun. Yeah. Okay, now. I'm going to put on my conservative hat. Okay. Well, who doesn't like the Impressionists anyway? Huh? I mean, I was talking to Monet, and he thought it was okay, so what the hell? This is a still life that we did in painting class. And I would set up a still life, just, hey, Chris. How you doing? I would set up a still life there of plates, and I got these little shiny goblets from the thrift store. And anyway, we made it look like it was a regular, French household. We're going to have a bottle of wine here. They got two of them. They're white in the dark, and the whole works. But actually, I painted it in a very, if you get up close, it's kind of fun to see. And it's fun for me, too, to see how much of an impression I can get. If I can get you to read that as a silver goblet, bingo, that's fun. That's fun, that's all. And I like this one. I mean, this is just one that most people like. It's because this is a subject matter that everybody feels comfortable with. I'm not so sure about that radioactive cheese there, but other than that, it's a pretty good painting, though. Okay, behind you, that's okay, Joe. These are some more of those big, heavy, dark drawings, and they're a little bit different. This is my romantic, this female warrior here. But anyway, in these paintings, this one too, but up at all these marks up in here are what you call a protage. That's, I would collect all manner of little plastic things, like a tray or some drawing. Some of them were actually drawing devices, had little things that you could draw with. But you could put it under the paper and come back over it with a heavy lead stick, and you'd get these automatic little lines, which you couldn't get that any other way. Now, I was introduced to that when I had a bad broken leg back in about 75. I was a full leg cast, and I couldn't do anything, so I would use templates to help me draw. And I mean, they were all, I did 1,000 little circle drawings. And it was because it was easy to work within the template. I could dig in there with graphite and erase it out, and I just exhausted that one. But the idea of using a frottage, like those little lines right there, still remained. And so a lot of these drawings have that quality in them. It's kind of like a printmaking in a way, in that sense. So this is kind of an odd one here. I put this big oval, this sort of circular form in here, and a secondary one in here. It's kind of framing the picture. A lot of this gray over here, you can see it looks like wet. You can see the brushwork. Well, that's simply a turf wash with the graphite, Well, of course, once you do that, you can't get your whites back very easily, but so this is a kind of a little unusual one here because I don't get into the kind of a hard architectural style very often, but I do have that desire every now and then, and so this kind of brittle, geometric, hard edge sort of thing. I did, maybe 20% of my drawings were in that vicinity. Okay. Oh, there's one over here, right behind that guy. This is mostly an eraser-driven thing. This is another big black thing, but a lot of eraser marks, kind of giving it a sort of a luminous character, and I thought that was kind of novel. I never did another one, so it must have not been too good. Okay, now, some of you just swing down around and get on the other side so that we'll go over here, but I want to talk about these on the wall right here. Hi, Jane. Hey. Yeah. Excuse me just a second.
Considering how many other I know. Yeah, it's heartbreaking. It does seem more than anybody's intended.
All right. This is Riverside, California. My son lived out there, and this is my first trips to California. Riverside's a hot city. But he had a little putty in his backyard. And there it is. There's photographs of this little thing. And I was out there watching my grandson for hours and hours. So it was only natural that I would eventually begin to paint that, or draw it. And so I did tons of these little drawings, you know. And these color ones are all Prismacolor, and which is easy. It's a very, you know, just, it's a fun thing to work with. And I had a pretty good selection of them. And then here's, his house is right here, looking out onto the street. This is my old Saab. And if we just turn a little bit, looking this way, then you see this scene over here. And I can't, I don't have it on here, but these cypresses out there are monsters. Raccoons, rats, cougars live in those things. They're big. They're huge, and it's just... Anyway, this is that little, this little cherub that's on the big painting back over there. And this kind of dominated my thinking for a long time here. This is just a little composite of the backyard, and who doesn't have a Weber out there and an easy chair to sit in and stuff like that. Here's one of my good friends, Paula. Where is she? She's here. This is one of our road trips, and looking right out the window at the driver. Yeah. Now, to keep these little drawings interesting, I'm using pretty much a kind of a hatch, a cross hatch like this. I'm sorry, not a cross. It's an angular hatch. So they are a little bit more lively than just simply coloring them, because there's a certain amount of activity, a little dynamic buzz right in the tone itself. And these were a lot of fun because after I got into this, using this, I could draw anything. I mean, it was very amenable to almost any subject. Little foliage like that. Even I actually got stuck drawing birthday cards and stuff like that. And, I do have a. Let's see. This is some of this stuff shows up in there. Well, anyway, this is. By the way, this is a little book of my drawings. Chris Birdie was enthusiastic drawing supporter of mine, and he thought it'd be a good idea to have some actual little drawings that you can look at. So these are little pages of my sketchbook, selected, of course. I'm not going to give you the laundry list. So, okay. By the way, if you have any questions about these things, ask.
So these are Prismacolor.
That's all. Never mind.
They're pencils. They're like pencils.
Yeah. Prismacolor pencils.
Prismacolor pencils.
You can get them in stick form too.
Yeah.
And you can actually, if you have a little chirp or mineral spirits, you can wash them and make them almost look like a watercolor. So they're pretty flexible. They don't erase quite as well as I mean, you know, once you get that pigment into the paper, it's a little hard to get it out, but it's a pretty fun thing. Yeah. Most of the time, you know, these I would be using these as a blend, not just using one color all the time. Just so. Yeah. All right, we're moving on. Maybe I can get out of here, buddy. Whoa, sorry. I wanted to say a couple of words about this drawing. It's one of my personal favorites. Not because it's wonderful, which it is, but this is the first time I was just horsing around, and I had a little cotton wad, and I had some turf on it, and I go, look at that. What a good boy am I. And so it was the first time I actually started to populate a drawing with artificial gizmo like that, just using a cotton little twist. And I really like that idea. And of course, here's my circles again. This I must have been in my record loving days. So this looks like an actual record player. Yeah, I don't know. There's something about this that reminds me of Jasper Johnson, who's one of my favorite artists. And not that I was actually looking at it, but it just feels like it. Sometimes, you know, you get it in the air. Sometimes it's like the flu or something. It just gives it you. All right, these big ones here are getting pretty recent now. In California, when I was in the Palisades, I decided that I'm going to use watercolor. Not exactly watercolor, but gouache. Gouache is simply watercolor that's a little bit opaque. I don't know quite how they make it opaque. Don, where are you? What do they put in gouache to make it opaque?
It's just a heavier pigment, but sometimes they put in some choppy material.
Yeah. Sometimes it's actually change it. You can make watercolor opaque if you add white and black to it. It gets a little muddy, but I don't actually use it as an opaque thing. Almost all these things are transparent, mainly because I'm just maybe cautious or something. I don't know. But anyway, there's a couple of big ferns in his backyard, and here they were. And oh, that was the first one. This is the one that started all these gouache ones. And these old beat-up leaves with all these things wiggling around in there. I mean, the fact that I outlined it, I think, is what made it begin to work. And that started to really, things started to happen. And this is, for me, a new road, and I'm really quite enthused about it. So, now I can remember when I was a student, you know, the teacher would say, you can't outline. You know, that's a no-no.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, I'm outlining now, and I don't give them that.
Cezanne did, but he was very discreet, so if he did it, it's okay with me. Now, basically outlining helps you separate the colors a little bit. I mean, for instance, this blue or that green, I mean, these things, if that outline wasn't there, this green would have to carry the load between those two edges. That's very hard to do. That's an uphill battle. So this you know, a really wonderful artist, she's dead now, but Alice Neal does portraits. And I would highly recommend you look at her if you think it outlines her. Not so good, because she is just wonderful. Okay, any questions about these? No. They're a real steal at $500,000. Now you better pick it up right now. Okay, well, let's go down to this other wall here. Well, these are very typical of the drawings that I did through my middle Parkland years. Again, a really big, heavy, dark area here. I'm still working with circles. This time it looks like cannonballs or something, I don't know. But anyway, that was a big deal for me. And I really enjoy that. These things have a certain weight to them. Because really they're pencil paintings in a way. And I'm using very heavy pigments, very heavy soft pencils. 6B, 9B, I don't think you get much higher than that. And this one, I think, is somewhat noteworthy because I'm giving you a skin here, a shallow skin where things happen on this surface here. And of course these are openings, and so it's a delicate operation. I got to go in there and suture that up. But they have that kind of slightly mythical, you know, creepy character. But I also use this a lot for my drawing 3 class, trying to get them to figure out how to get an edge to another edge to another edge, and keeping it in low, close value here. So we did a lot of things sort of like that. It's one way you can start to generate form. It doesn't have to come from anywhere. You just start this. You put a ruler down, draw a line, smudge it, move it over. It's a kind of a process. And eventually you get something that's, you know, fairly impressive. And this is really the same thing here. This is kind of a creepy thing, kind of a, it's called clone. It's probably closer to us today than we would feel comfortable with, I don't know. And finally, this big painting. This is just a large version of those other little Prismacolor drawings over there. But again, it was like the ferns over there, going of the day and a night sort of thing, letting that be dark and this be light. This is acrylic, and you know, all this little horizontal stroking, I'm sure, is coming from that horizontal stroking of the Prismacolors over there. It's just a natural progression. So it's funny when you get up really close to it, it doesn't make much sense, but when you're back a little bit, way back. No, it's so, there. I think I've hit most of everything here. Any questions about this?
Did you talk about the piece outside?
No, not the ones outside yet.
In a small percentage, I'm sure, at that. But how many pieces, like, finish? Like, you'll never touch them again. This one's done. How many pieces do you think you've done?
Oh, in here? Most of these are finished in here. I won't
But
go back.
in your body of work.
Oh,
All of it.
yeah. I mean, it's all open-ended. I'm still.
From when you graduated college to today.
Oh, in this.
No, you at home, your personal stuff.
Well, I'm working right now. All these out here in the hallway are brand new. You know, I'm not sure I got the question.
She wants to know, what do you think is finished?
Like how?
With all of your hundreds that you
Oh, that's
have.
unfinished, and that's unfinished. Maybe this is done. No, I don't know. They're all finished as far as I'm concerned.
With a number, like hundreds or...
Well, he does have hundreds.
Tens of thousands. Have you had?
We went through at least 74.
I don't think that way very well. I'm not. It's hard
He
to
had
say.
a list, and so probably.
You asked a difficult question.
Yeah, tip of the iceberg. Yeah. I was saying we had about 100, about 74, 75 to choose from in your studio.
Right,
so,
right. And that was
yeah.
That wasn't those
That
are the
wasn't
ones I
nearly
just
at
thought would
all.
be worth.
Exactly.
There was still a lot there. I was really surprised that this having this show. Man, I wish that on all of you. Because it's really a big trip through memory lane. I'm looking at these things, and it takes me right back to when I was drawing them and what my life was like then, which wasn't always bad, I don't mean, but it does give you a certain nostalgia about your life, the past, and that's kind of nice because a lot of people, I mean, in other professions, don't really have these markers. Here, an artist does. He's got these every time he does a drawing. That's a little bit of a time marker in your life, and you can go back and revisit that, see it. So, yeah, come on, think of something really hard.
Just a practical question, but what is the focus of your talk on Tuesday going to be?
I haven't figured that one out yet. No, I think that talk will be more about process. It's for students. I think classes are going to come. At least that's what I understand. I don't know.
It's open to the public, but a drawing class is going to be here. And he's actually going to draw in the gallery. So we're going to set up a table, and he's going to have his...
Yeah, I'm going to sell them too.
Do you know how messy he is when he works?
Well, a lot of my teaching, a great deal of it, was demonstrating. I have no problems with that. I can talk and draw at the same time. It is no struggle for me. In fact, I almost enjoy it in a way. Where it bothers some, they lose their concentration, but I think it's because, well, I don't know how to say this, but since I'm a drawer, And I know where I'm going when I'm drawing. I know ahead of time where things are going to go and what they're going to look like. I have that. It's not that I'm prescient or that I see into the future, but I know what form looks like. This body here, I've done enough life drawing, I could draw this body, I give it one glance, I can draw it. If you look at that little booklet of sketches and things, you'll see that. So mainly, when I'm knowing where I'm going and knowing how things look, doesn't pose a big problem. So that frees up a lot of time and energy for being creative. That's the secret of my art, if there's any secret. I know, and I can quickly develop something. I'm fairly fast, so I find out if I'm wrong soon. So, yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned the Decomi, you mentioned the Impressionist Monet. Can you name a few artists you think you like the most or influenced you most, and why?
Well, let's see. You know, I think I'd like.
You mentioned Jasper Johns.
Hmm?
You mentioned Jasper Johns when you were looking at that one over there.
Jasper Johns is one of my favorites.
Jim Dine.
I don't know exactly why. I really have a liking for him.
I was going to say Jim Dine.
Yeah. Wait, when you were there in front of the ferns, who did you mention?
Alice Neal.
Alice Neal.
Okay.
Willem de Kooning was a major artist for the whole half century, more than that. And he was really the core of the New York schools. And if you go to the Art Institute or the Metropolitan or the Museum of Modern Art, you'll see many examples of his work. And for me, he is very, very good. Now, the West Coast had Richard Diebenkorn, who was another big artist, mostly towards the second half of the century. Well, not quite. Actually, he was here at one time. He even came and taught at U of I. But that's the West Coast Abstract School, the Bay Area Figurative School, they call it, is a very vibrant school, and it's still going. It doesn't. That school has really got legs. It's been going for years and years, and it's still not. It's one of those things where people can draw realistically and yet still treat all the planes in the picture as though they were paint. See, the trick between realism and abstraction and art is that if I paint this lady here, I don't want to identify her. I want you to see the way I painted her. I don't want, you know, if something's too real, who cares about that? We live in realism. We walk in it. We swim in it all day long. What we want is something that moves beyond realism, or at least isolates it, so that we're looking at art rather than realism. I don't mean I don't have anything against realistic work, but the Bay Area Figurative School is one where you can have your cake and eat it. It's really very, very abstract, and yet it's very real. In fact, well, actually, I work abstractly as well as realistically. I have no problems switching. I don't even think about the switch. It's just form out there. So,
Wayne Thiebaud.
Wayne Thiebaud, another one. There's basically Wayne Thiebaud is interesting because he's an artist that would have come out of an old-fashioned drawing school. You know, before art was taken up by the universities, you went to an art school, and there you learned art, and you learned a little history, but you learned how to draw and do things. When art got into the universities, then I think the university felt they had to fluff this up and give you a lot of history and a lot of this and this, and, you know, and it became somewhat a different thing. But Wayne Thiebaud is one of those wonderful artists who, well, isn't everybody familiar with him? I mean, yeah, I don't need to beat that one down. Okay.
Eric Fischel.
Hmm?
Eric Fischel.
Eric Fischel, another one. There's a realist today who is still going strong, and he made a big reputation by painting the rich life. You know, people who had money and estates, and they were always having parties that were a little risque, and it was kind of a voyeuristic view of another world for most of us. His work was very nice, and I really enjoyed it. You know, Eric Fischel. Let's see, who else? Well,
Jim Dine.
The painting in the other room, you said it was Masonite. And then these others are canvas. What makes you, what directed you to that direction? You use the masonite?
Well,
is there,
nothing, canvas is nice, but you gotta stretch it, you gotta prime it. Well, I've always had a lot of masonite around because that's what the students use. I could go to the lumber company and throw those 4x8 sheets on top of my rack and take them back, cut them up, and the kids could prime them, and they have painting supports to work with. And it was tough. It didn't take up a lot of room. It was a little heavy, but not. It wasn't nearly as cumbersome as canvas, you know, which is fine. I like canvas. I like the tooth and all that, but I don't really have any problems with painting on masonite.
The masonite, though, that's that nice slick surface. Sometimes that's fun to push your paint around on that.
You can do that too. Generally, we sort of sand them if you're gonna put some gesso on them, and yeah. As far as I know, it's of course they were always worried: is this permanent? Is it going to last? You know. As far as I know, it's lasted and lasted. I don't think it's you know.
I got one of those paintings from 25 years ago.
Oh, right.
On masonite at home.
Yeah, so do I.
Jack, can you talk about the work that's out here, your most recent work?
I will. Yeah. Okay.
Should we go? You want to go out there, or you want to talk about?
Okay. Well, I'll just say basically, the work out there in the hall started with these two pieces right behind you, the two ferns, and so that gave me the familiarity with gouache. And then I thought, well, I can do this. So I guess I'm ready for abstraction now. And away I went. And so those out there are that way. And I have several that are in process right now at home. And you'll just have to wait till next year. Let's go and look at them.
I told Dan that you said that we were too loud.
I'll get a close-up.
Well, they should.
See, I can zoom in on you, you know. He doesn't realize that, I don't think.
Well, what can I say here? These are not real, but they look real in some ways. They look like stuff. Even when I'm painting abstractly, the abstract shapes and things has a similarity and feel that is somewhat real. I mean, you know, I had an infection last year, and this looks just like it. No, it has a kind of a blobby, amoeba-like character, and I started out right up in here, and I thought, what, does that ever look bad? I'll just keep, when it looks so bad, then you get very courageous, you don't give damn, you just go ahead and paint like anything. So it got, all of a sudden it started to get better, and I thought, well, what do I got here? Is this going to be good? And then I started to get a little bit careful. That's the way it always is. That's the anatomy of a picture. And eventually I managed to get it done, and, but it was a little tricky thing. I don't know if I'll do another one like this or not. It's kind of an oddball. This one is a little more, I'm a little more comfortable with the forms in this one. I'd say it started out with a sort of a dark, cloudy, threatening thing here. And you can just see this transition as it comes around the picture here. It has a lot of motion in it. That was kind of new. I must have been thinking about golf or something then. I just had those clubs in there. Kind of has that swing to it. Yeah, I love this. I mean, you could just, in fact, that little green thing probably looks like one of those fern leaves in there. This one one over here has a much stranger little totem-like character with these long, funny little odd things going on. It's much more of a compositional picture where this is here, 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 you know, you're doing that. But these things are pretty organic. You don't think about it so much when you're doing it. You just, the picture has those clues in it right from the get-go that tell you how it's going to develop. And it just moves right along inexorably. This, what kind of paper, the question was. This is, most of these, I think this one is arches, but they're rolls. They come about 50 inches wide, 55 various, by about 10 yards. About $90 or $100 a roll through Jerry's Artorama. How about that?
You said earlier when you draw, you know where you're going to go.
Yeah.
I don't understand it when you do something abstract. How do you know where you're going?
I don't know. There you have to use your impulses a little bit. I might have even had a little bit of a sketch that I was just very basic structure to help me think about what I was going to do. You got to start somewhere. Generally, the next, this is the last one, and so the seeds of my next picture may be in here that I didn't quite finish in a way. So that one picture will lead to the next one, hopefully. If you don't start another picture pretty soon, you may get that dangerous artist block and be paralyzed for months. That's when I go skiing. Any other
questions?
Well, I almost made it to 8 o'clock. You've been a most gracious audience, and I've seen so many friends here that I haven't seen for a long time. It's been wonderful. It's been like an old homecoming. And, well, it's been wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
If you have any questions, you can always, get my email address and email me, and we can come back and talk about something if there's something you want to find out about. Oh, yeah. Oh, there's one thing I want to. But you just hold that for a minute. I'll be right back. Stay right there. Don't go away.
Get a sketchbook. Oh, nice. Okay, I was wondering about that painting that I saw sitting in there. I was wondering about that.
That's the Walter Mitty in me.
Have you copyrighted the term Rambo-esque yet?
What?
Did you copyright the term Rambo-esque?
No. That would be good, though.
You used that one day. I've repeated it many times.
Actually, this is the only painting that I have that was from the U of I in the early days. This is one of my first oil paintings. Not the first one, because it looks too good to be the first one. Geez. But I was an airplane nut, and they had these planes out there at Willard Field. They were left over from the war. They had a big DC-3. I could get up there in the cockpit, pretend that I was flying. I was always a flying enthusiast. Eventually, I took flying out to U of I. This always had a special place in my heart. Actually, I was there. These were drawn right from sitting out there in the grass and doing it. Okay.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Is your email address on a card around here that I'm
I just now recognize you with that short hair. You threw me off utterly.
Yeah, it's a whole new short hair.
I don't see you often enough. You're also out at Johnson.
Oh yeah, I see him every day. I that stuff. So I've been doing darling piece of kitties, thinking of how silly it is to